All right. Oh, there we go. Good. Okay, any questions? Where is everybody? Midterm exam scared them away? All right. So a couple of things. So hopefully you've kind of watched through and worked through the videos that I posted for last time. Today I want to play around some more with Lambda, look at some other use cases and things like that. Lambda's really interesting. It's really hot. There's kind of a lot of attention around it for a number of reasons. So one part of the idea behind Lambda is this notion of serverless web applications. Okay, so when you think about your traditional web applications, typically you have a bunch of you have your page set up in HTML and CSS. You might have a little bit of JavaScript. Then you'll generally have a web server and possibly an application server that is running code in some other language. It might be Java, it might be C#, it might be Node.js, etc., etc. Right? But that side is really what's doing most of the business logic and all of those things. It may actually be talking to a database server, all of that kind of stuff. We're seeing a shift right now from placing most of the logic on the server to basically, it's sort of in computing, it's always this kind of pendulum. We go back and forth. So now, whereas we have most of the logic sitting on the server, we're seeing a lot more push to do these things basically on the client side in the browser. Nevertheless, it still comes up that you do need some form of server technology a lot of times for having something done. But as we do more functionality within the browser, being able to sort of justify running a server 24/7 for the brief amounts of time that it may actually be doing its job is somewhat difficult to sort of argue for. Okay, and that's where this notion of serverless comes in. Now, obviously, there's a server there, but the point is that you don't have this dedicated server that you've set up, that you've basically configured and so forth, and that is constantly running. Instead, as you saw if you've watched the videos, basically with Lambda, we can set up essentially events that say, hey, when this particular event occurs, we're going to spin up basically our code. It's going to handle that particular event, and then that's it. It's done. We throw it away. Okay. So that's part of kind of that part of the motivation, part of the reason why you're seeing a lot of interest in this type of thing. The other thing, and I actually hope to show this, probably not going to be today, but I definitely want to show this, so we'll end up doing it next week. How many people have heard of Amazon's Echo? No one? Alexa, right? Yeah, right. A little speaker thing that you can talk to and all that. Well, there's a free SDK for developing Alexa skills, and in fact, the recommended manner that you develop the skills for it is to write a Lambda function to handle basically your Alexa skill. Okay, so again, we'll sort of take a look at that as another interesting use case of Lambda and all. All right, so a couple of things. So the things I want to do today, I'm going to look at. We'll look at something called CloudWatch Events, which basically is a way that you can, that essentially you can set up Lambda functions to be executed on some sort of schedule. Okay, so you saw in the videos they did the kind of simple example of uploading a file to S3, having it automatically backed up, right? And certainly we can trigger on those types of events. I'm going to show you a similar type of thing. But I also wanted to show you kind of this CloudWatch events and those kinds of things. All right, so I'll start again with kind of this. With this S3 bucket stuff and all of that. Actually, which do I want to start with? No, you know what? I'll start with CloudWatch. You'll see why in a minute. All right. So let me go and fire up Lambda here. And I can go ahead and create a function, right? And so we're going to use Python. Right. The point is, which you may not have realized. So the videos that I had posted, they talk specifically about using Python for programming in Lambda. There's actually you can actually program using a number of different languages. I actually put up a link. Where was it? Yeah, the execution environment and available libraries. So if you go here, you'll actually see there's a number of different ways you can program Lambda. So if you're really good in JavaScript, you're familiar with Node.js, you can do that. You can use Java. Notice there's a .NET binding as well. All of those kinds of things. All right, so let's just search for the Hello World one, and I'll go ahead and create based off of that. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to call my function reminder. You'll see why in a minute. And this is choose an existing role. Yeah, I probably have a bunch. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just going to use basic execution for right now. There's the default code. We'll go ahead and create that function. Okay. So here's sort of the motivation behind this example, right? So I do a lot of, so I teach a lot of this stuff in class and everything, and invariably I will periodically have that did I leave the stove on kind of moment for AWS. That is, I leave class and I hope that I actually shut everything down, but I don't remember that I did, so then I got to log in and actually check that I actually shut everything down and all of those kinds of things. So, I can use a Lambda function for kind of checking on this type of thing, and for basically notifying me if I haven't shut particular things down. Okay, so let's take a quick look at kind of how to build something like this. Oops. So of course we're going to use Bodo, which gives us the ability to essentially access, control, query all of the various AWS services. Then I'll set up a list of the regions that I'm interested in. So I would probably have something like US East 1. I tend to mostly use US East 2 in here. If I was using a number of other regions, I'd list them all. For right now, I'm just gonna have the one region in there. But we'll see. We'll see. Certainly, this is extensible simply by adding into the regions. Okay, so for every region in the regions, basically, we're going to do the following. So let's fire up a client, right? We'll have a Bodo 3 client, and this is going to deal with CloudFormation and for that particular region, right? So we've been doing a lot with CloudFormation. I know you guys love it. So one of the things is that we may want to that I want to basically find out, did I leave any stacks actually running? Okay, so again, fairly straightforward for this, right? I can say client describe stacks. So we call that basically returns. We've seen these dictionaries that it returns. There is the stacks key that basically gives me the list of stacks that actually do exist. Okay. So let me go ahead and assign that to a variable like so. Make that a little bigger. All right, then let me grab the names of the stacks, right? So the stack names are, right, and so again, I mean, basically I'm just going to use a list comprehension here to grab those particular values, right? Let me actually just, it's kind of super conceptual here. Generally easier if we just do a quick little Python test. Right, so import Boto3, and then, just as we were doing here, and so let's do from pprint import that. Okay. So I don't currently have any stacks running, but we can see that I do basically get back sort of that that empty list. Okay, and so let me go ahead. Let me fire up a quick stack here. Let's put it in the right region. I just want the simple one. Where is it? There we are. Come on. Yay. All right, let's run this again. Okay. And so there's the information we get back for a particular stack, right? So we see creation time, there's the description information, all of that, and then we see also the name of the stack. Okay. And that's actually the thing that that we're interested in. So basically, we want to extract the name of the stack to essentially let us know what stuff is in fact running. All right. So back over to Lambda. Right. So so basically here, right. we get the list of stacks themselves, just like we saw. Right, client describes stacks, substack, which gives us basically the list of dictionaries like so, and then basically all we want is the stack name. So the stack names for everything in there, we'll say sdata sub stack name. Okay. So there we've extracted basically the individual names and so forth. Then we can do, so we'll do a couple of things. Let me do MSG is equal to that, and so then I could say MSG plus equals so if the length of the message is that, then I'm just going to return the message. All right. So there's that stuff. Let's actually give it a try. So let me go ahead and configure a test event. Right, I'll just go with the little hello world thing. Don't really care about the keys because we're not making use of those. So I'll just leave those in there. All right, let's go ahead and test this. Should die a horrible death. Yes, it does. Right. Error occurs when access denied when calling describe stacks operation user blah blah. Right. Basically, because of the permissions that we've given our Lambda function, we haven't included the ability to make use of the describe stacks, the CloudFormation stuff. Right. So we need to basically add that. Let's go ahead and do that. So a couple of ways of doing this. What I actually find easiest is so I'll go to IAM here, and so under IAM, let's go to roles. Okay, and so I can create a role for this, right? So I can have something, right? So there I've clicked on create role, and we basically want a role for Lambda. Okay. In terms of the permissions, right? So first, let me go ahead and search for Lambda here. So basically, I definitely want this one here, the AWS Lambda basic execution role. So one of the things that this gives us is, notice, permission to provides write permission to the CloudWatch logs. So if you don't turn this on, when you go to run it and it does fail, when you go to access the logs, it's going to come and says, I don't have any logs, because it didn't have permission to actually write the logs. Okay, so generally you do want that. The other thing I want then is CloudFormation, right? So here's CloudFormation, read-only access. That should basically give me what I want. Okay, so I have those two things. Let's go ahead and so we'll give it a name, right? So I'll just say Lambda and CloudForm. Just going to add one other thing in there. We'll see in a minute. All right, so there's my role. Let me go back over to here, and so we'll just grab probably, yeah, that's right. I have to. I forgot about that. Go here. Okay, so there's the role. The role has been selected. Let's go ahead and do a save and test, right? And that does say it has in fact succeeded. And notice, yes, I have left the following things running. So the function is sort of returning this string and all of that. Now that's great if I'm actually going to run this from within here. But remember, the intent is to essentially remind me once I've left class that, hey, I've left something running, right? So that's where SMS messaging comes in. So you may have looked. I had also posted this link here. The sending SMS messages from AWS is very easy, right? It really is. So essentially, oops, where's Lambda? There we go. So I'll create a little helper function here for sending an SMS message. Basically we'll say, okay, we're going to pass along the SMS client, and we'll pass along the particular message that we're interested in. Then what I'm actually going to do here is I'll basically just create an environment variable. And so the idea behind the environment variable is that will hold the phone number that we're interested in. And I'm just going to put a placeholder here, set SMS. generally I would want to then, here's where we basically place the actual number itself. All right, so in here, so here's how you can access environment variables. Whether and this is not a Lambda specific thing. That is, if you wanted to access environment variables on the system that you're on in Python, this is what you would do, right? So you import the OS module, you use environ, and basically look that up, right? So then I can simply say, okay, if this is not none, okay. So first I'm checking to make sure that yes, it is in fact set, right? And let's see. And so our little sentinel string here is this. Okay. So as long as both of those conditions are met, then we should have an actual valid. Then we should have an SMS number that was set in terms of the environment variables. Okay, so in that case, basically I can just use the client itself and call the publish function, and it really cannot be simpler, right? So keyword variable for the phone number, and that's just, well, basically the thing stored in the environment variable, and then keyword variable for the message. Okay. That's it. Now, creating the SMS client is again really very easy. Basically, all I need to do. Oops. Oh, no, sorry, Photo 3 client, and right, and that's not a typo. Okay, so notice, even though I'm saying it's the SMS client because I'm using it for sending text messages. Okay, the service that we're making use of through Amazon is SNS. Okay. Notice, it's the simple notification service. While you can use it, while you certainly can use it for SMS messaging, you can also use it, notice, for publication, subscription, mobile push, all of those kinds of things. Okay, so, all right, so we have that. Let's see what happens when we test this. Right, and yes, it did. Right, so basically, it kind of comes up. It goes through this thing of saying, "Hey, you know, of all of that." I can actually. So let me actually test this. Let me do this. There we are. Okay, test this again. Yes, it failed. Right. Again, basically, we're not authorized because of our IAM role, so we need to come back over to here. So let me grab that. Let's see. This was this one. Okay. So this one, attach policy, and let's go to SNS. And I want full access, so I will go ahead and attach that policy back over to Lambda. Really? Now what? Did it just not take? You left running the following instances. Okay. So there it is. So it notifies us of the instances and all of that. Now, how to get this triggered? Okay, so basically it can notify us. To get this triggered, I'll do it this way. Actually, that's right, I can do it here. Let's go to the triggers. Add trigger. Okay. So here's where basically, or one of the places where essentially you can define the various triggers for your Lambda function, right? API gateway basically you can use is another service within AWS, essentially for creating a RESTful API, and so based on when people hit those particular endpoints, you can have different Lambda functions do different things. There's the Alexa stuff right there. The thing that we want is are the CloudWatch events. Okay. So let me go ahead and I'll just create a new rule. Call it after class, even though technically I'll set up the rule now, but it won't actually be for after class, so that we can actually see this. So there's a few different syntaxes for setting up the rules and so forth. What I wanted to show you, here it is. Right, so I actually have this link here for the different types of schedule expressions. And the type that I'm actually going to talk about is this one here, cron expression. How many people have heard of cron? Okay, so if you haven't heard of cron, basically it's a service on Linux that allows you to schedule different types of things to happen, right? So the whole idea is you can basically say, if some date and or time matches a particular pattern, then do some particular event. Okay, and so Amazon basically allows you to specify in terms of cron syntax, essentially the same type of thing. So they give some examples here. For instance, notice the expression basically here says, okay, so 0 minutes after 10 o'clock on any day of the month, in any month, in any week, in any year, do that particular thing. The only tricky bit is that time is in UTC, okay? Basically Greenwich Mean Time. Okay, so even though it's 11:40 a.m. for us here, basically if I specify 11:40 a.m., it's not going to run there, right? So let's do right there it is. So for Eastern Daylight Time, right, we're at 11:40, and UTC right now is 3:40 p.m. Okay, so let's actually let me just go ahead and play around with this. Back over to Lambda. All right, cron. So let's do 42 and 11. Let's see, where is that? Yeah, star, star, question mark, star. All right. Star, star, question mark, star. Oh, yeah. And it generally wants at least a minute, so let me do that. Why are you still looking like you're having an issue? Oh, there we go. It just didn't. Okay. So now that basically will run at, oh no, actually it won't, sorry. Yes. So at 43, one more minute, should actually execute. Okay, so while we're waiting for that, questions on any of that much?
Yeah, suppose if I want to notify me if I have a server running on the cloud formation, and if I'm deleting it or ending it, then I should get a notification. Is that possible?
Yeah, you can actually. So if you take a look at the stuff for under Bodo, you can actually delete stacks as well. In fact, I think it's just delete stacks if I remember right.
I'm not deleting a stack. I actually want to if a stack is deleted, I want to get the notification.
Yes.
So if I go
that's what this does.
No, this will tell that if any of my machine cloud formation is running, if any of my stack is running on the cloud formation.
Yes.
But suppose I want to notify me if a stack is deleted from the.
Oh, when a stack is deleted.
Yeah.
We'd have to look to see if there is a trigger for. There's the message. If there's a trigger for cloud formation, which there may or may not be. Let's see. So if I go to here, so there isn't a trigger directly for right. So notice there's not a trigger for CloudWatch directly. There isn't even one for EC2 directly. Right, so it's not going to necessarily notify you that that something has been deleted because there's not a particular trigger for it. And certainly you could build something using something like this based on polling or that kind of thing. But all right, so that's the basic idea. And then of course I could modify this to say, okay, I want this to run at the end of every class and all of that. And so anyways, you get that idea. All right, let me go ahead and delete these rules. I don't really need these in here. All right. I want to show you another a variant of what was shown in the videos from last time. So the videos that I posted for Monday, basically you recall it was setting up an S3 bucket. When a file is uploaded to S3, it basically just made a copy of the file into another bucket. As soon as I saw that, I said, you know what? I said, let's actually play around with some of the recognition stuff, right? So basically, what I wanted was the ability to upload an image to an S3 bucket and essentially have the faces detected, mark up that image. We've already seen how to do that, and then basically copy that image into a separate S3 bucket. Okay. Now, most of that is pretty straightforward, except for one really nasty bit. So the really nasty bit with that has to do with the fact that Pillow, the library that we use for basically drawing on the image, doesn't exist in Lambda. That library isn't there. Okay. And this brings up basically a very relevant question, that is, what if you need particular libraries installed, and how do you essentially make that happen? Okay. So it's a bit of manual work to set up, but it isn't that bad. Plus, this also will actually allow us to take a look at developing kind of the code externally and then just uploading the code. So I have a couple of things here. Right, so I have this link here. Notice, creating a Python deployment package for AWS Lambda. Okay. So this links directly into AWS's documentation, and basically, so in this example, so they start off this first step. Actually, you can essentially ignore. So here they're giving the example of doing an image resize application, right? And so they give you some code for this that, frankly, again, you can actually ignore for that. But then where it really actually picks up is essentially is basically here at step 4. Okay, so the whole idea is to do this, what you basically need to do is spin up an Amazon Linux server. Spin it up anywhere. You're going to connect in, then you're going to install, you're basically going to manually install Python along with whatever packages that you're actually going to need. Then you end up bundling that whole thing up as a zip file, and you will then download the zip file, you include your code that's going to make use of those libraries in the zip file, and that's actually what you send up to Lambda to be able to use. Okay, so the steps basically from for, I mean, here they're showing SSH, of course, you know, we use PuTTY, right? But then basically you see they do the installation. So notice they're installing GCC because there are some libraries, like for instance Pillow, that do have a C code base, need to be compiled and all of that. So they kind of give you all the steps here for essentially what you need to do to make this happen. All right, so I've basically done those steps for Pillow. So essentially here I have this this Pillow deployment package.zip. Right. So if I download this, this is all of the stuff that essentially was zipped up by that process, except it does not include any AWS specific, right? My Lambda code doesn't exist here at all, okay? This is just basically all of the Python libraries, the appropriate files that we're going to need to be able to run Pillow, okay? And again, I mean, in terms of this, right? So notice you basically so just to kind of walk you through, right? So you're installing the appropriate tools to be able to do Python development. Here you literally are downloading the source code for Python, right? Then basically you're configuring you're doing the compilation of Python itself, then you're copying it into the appropriate directories, and then essentially getting set up, getting a virtual environment set up. Okay, so that's what these basically are allowing you to do. Once you've done that, this is the stuff that allows you to install the appropriate libraries. Now, even though you'll notice that they do have this little link here for pip install Bodo 3, you don't actually have to do that one because by default we've already seen when we use our Lambda functions, Bodo 3 is available. So that one you don't have to do. But if there were other libraries in addition to Pillow that you needed, you would also basically do those here. So in addition to pip install Pillow, maybe you're going to do pip install requests, etc. Right? Whatever other libraries you're going to need, that's where you're going to do those. Right? And then again, basically just the zipping of the stuff. And again, here is where they're sort of copying that thumbnail version code in, which again you can ignore. You don't actually need that. Okay, so that's basically the setup for that. All right, let's go back over to, oops, sorry. Let's go over to write some code for this. All right, so I'll go over to Lambda here. Let's go there. I'll go with the basic one for right now. Probably going to have to change that. Okay. So just like the setup that we've had previously, where we've basically downloaded all the things and so forth. Let me do this. Let me go ahead and I don't want us to run out of time. So here's the code essentially for doing this. Let me just fix this little error. Okay. And if you take a look, this is very similar to the code that I posted previously when we first looked at Rekognition. Okay, so a couple of things. Again, so we see that we're including the pillow libraries and so forth. I've actually just copied the get image from file function from the image helpers module that I gave you before. Part of it was that basically what happened is originally I had image helpers in here and I was running it and it was dying a horrible death, and the reason it was dying a horrible death is because the image helpers module requires the requests module to be installed, which I hadn't installed when I created the deployment package, and frankly I was too lazy to do. So I just basically took the file code that doesn't use requests, because that's all we're using anyways. So there's that. There's the here's the stuff for drawing the boxes and the converting coordinates. Again, there's literally nothing new there. If you compare that to the face finding graphical version that I gave you before, it's exactly the same thing, right? Really the same thing here for get image from file. I did, however, take the code for drawing the boxes onto the faces and separate that out into its own function, right? So given the file name, right, we basically create a client for Rekognition, right? We do our usual load up the bytes, right? Then we do our detect faces. So we call detect faces, we get back the response on that. Then I load up the image into pillow. That's all we're doing here. Right, get the appropriate size, and then simply iterate through all of the faces and draw basically the boxes returning that particular image. Okay, and again, apart from the fact that this is separated out into a function, it is the same in the code that we've seen before. Okay, let's take a look at the handler. A lot of the code here very similar to the example videos that I posted, right? So basically, we figure out what bucket it is through this sort of whole nested chain. Get the records, get the first record, go to the S3 part, get the bucket, get the name of the bucket, and there we have that, right? Of course, getting the key, we saw again basically code copied directly from the previous example. We create our S3 client. Now here's where it gets a little bit different, right here. Okay, so the idea is that we have this data sitting in S3, and essentially the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that image directly over onto the particular server that my Lambda function is running. Okay, where am I going to copy it to? Well, I'm going to copy it to /temp, basically the temp directory, and then notice that I have these two pair of braces inside the quotes. Okay, so this allows me to insert values into the string from Python. Okay, so the first value I'm going to insert basically is going to be, we're going to replace this first set of braces with a UUID. What's a UUID? Universally unique ID. Basically, come up with a temporary name that's unique, so that we're not overwriting stuff. So we do that, followed by basically, so essentially we prepend onto the name of the file, that is key, some UUID, basically giving us a unique identifier for that particular file. This is basically sort of our upload path, essentially the file that we're going to save our changed image in. Okay. Here we download the file. So we go to S3, go to that original bucket. We're basically going to grab the particular the newly uploaded file and basically save it to the download path itself. Okay. Then call our locate faces function that takes the image, locates the faces, draws the box around the faces, returns us that modified image. Okay, and simply save that at the upload path. Okay. Finally, I take that file and I upload it to a different bucket, namely Dr. V's located faces bucket. Okay, and that's all there is to that. All right, so let's take a look at kind of how this gets deployed and all of those kinds of things. I think I actually, do I have this? Oh yeah, I do. So I have this. So here's sort of my code where I'm playing around with this. Let me actually show you kind of how you get this set up and all of that. Actually, man, you know, I want to do it there. Nah, I'll do it in the other one. Oh, I think I do rather want to. All right. So, we're going to upload our code. We have to upload our code because of the fact that we have those additional Python libraries that we're basically going to have to upload. So that means instead of editing code in line, we're going to upload a zip file. Okay. Now, the handler, I could leave the handler alone, assuming that I basically had all of the naming the same way. Notice, this is basically looking for a function called Lambda handler in a module, or basically a file named lambda_function.py. In my case, right, I've called the file lambda_find_faces, so I do want to change that. Like so. So this way it will in fact know how to find that. All right. Then I need to create my zip file. Okay, so we already saw. All right, here's my pillow deployment package. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab that. And let's paste that into here. I'm just going to rename it. I don't actually have to. It could be called foobar, but let's call it Find Faces. And then I'm just going to take my Lambda Find Faces and drop that into there. Okay, so I should have that now. Let's double check. Right, there's Lambda Find Faces along with all the rest of that stuff. In terms of S3, I already have 2 buckets created. So I have Dr. V's face upload bucket. Oops. Right there. And then the other bucket that I mentioned, which is the located faces bucket that allows me to that I'm going to copy the located faces over to. All right, let's go over to Lambda. Go ahead and upload, and yes, it's on the desktop, and that's there. And find faces.zip. Okay. All right. Now, in terms of triggering, so I want an S3 trigger. Basically, on the Dr. V's face upload bucket, the particular thing I'm interested in is object creation. Okay, I don't need to worry about any prefixes or suffixes, etc. So we can go ahead and submit that. Okay. Configuration on the same bucket cannot. Oh. fine. Let's do this. There. Set my triggers, come back to that. All right, face upload bucket, object created. Good. Back over to the configuration. Yes, we have. Okay, I think looks like it's there, huh? All right, let's try creating a test event. S3. All right, so I'll use the S3 template for creating a test. Basically, there's a couple of things I need to change here. First, I need to change sort of this file name there. So if we go over here and check out the face upload, right? So I do have the Trump's image there. So let me set it to that. Then we need the bucket name. Oops. Which is that. And I need to put that in both of these places. And there. Right. Okay. Great. Yep, dies a horrible death. Probably a permissions error. Key error. What? That looks like it does not have the code. Yeah, it doesn't. We re-upload the zip, make sure that the name is correct. Good. Now we've died for a different reason. Let's see. Error occurred. Find faces. Find faces 105? Well, yes. Let's do this. I don't exactly trust the test, so let's do. Yeah, it's a permissions error. All right. So I think this is the one I want. Okay. Notice, different error message. That's good, right? Task timed out after 3 seconds, because because basically the default here is that we're only going to give it 3 seconds to run. Let's actually bump that up. Oops. All right. Success. Okay, so now let's actually check this out, since it's not complaining about that. Let me go to, first I'll delete this one. I will also make sure I don't have anything in this here, just to sort of prove that yes, we don't have anything fishy going on. Okay, good. So nothing in either of the buckets. Let's go back over to here. We'll do our upload, and once again, okay. Right. So there's the image, and let's take a look. And there are the located faces. Now, real quick, let's take a look at the permissions for that. Right. So since I'm actually writing to an S3 bucket, notice this time I'm actually using S3 full access. Of course, we are using Rekognition, so we need to provide access for that, and then we have our usual Lambda basic execution role. So those are the policies that we have attached for that particular role. Questions, issues, etc. Sorry? Yeah, right there. Okay. All right, see you next time.